All right, Monday on the Krueger Show, Sam Betesh is in the house. We're talking NFL, major trade to get into. Who got the better of the deal, the Steelers or the Dolphins? We'll get into a little breakdown on the NFC West, a little bit on the Steelers, Dolphins. We got a lot to get to. Let's go. Off and running on the Krueger Show on a Monday. Happy June the 30th, 2025. 25 years ago today. 25 years ago today. I welcomed my first baby into the world. My oldest daughter, my wife and I's first child. We have 4. But my daughter, your first is always a little bit more special. Little bit more special. I always joke with her because I've got 3 boys that, I got it right once and then not so great 3 times in a row. But happy birthday to my lovely daughter who's 25 and she's studying to be a nurse and she's fantastic. And I just saw her in Connecticut for a week on vacation, and happy birthday, Anna. So
happy birthday, Anna. That is 25 years, Larry.
25 years.
I thought you were going to give me sort of the professional 25-year update. No. 25 years of the most important thing you could do, arguably, right?
I'll say this. You know it too.
Yeah.
We have lots of different titles, right?
Yes.
I'm a talk show host. I'm a YouTuber. I'm a husband. I'm a father.
Sure.
To me, the title that I hold the most dear to my heart is that of father, being a father. It's even like even when I young Larry Krueger, when I was 12, 13, 14, 15. And I was playing sports and I was having fun and going out with my friends and this and that. I always, in the back of my head, knew that my life would include, kids and a big family. I'm one of 4 kids in my family. I'm the third of 4, and now I have 4 of my own. And all I would say is, they've added so much joy to my life. They've added so much meaning, so much motivation. Every time I've been knocked down, I've always gotten back up. And it's like, and my kids are my motivation. My wife and my family and my kids are my motivation. So, happy birthday, Anna! Enjoy your 25th birthday, and I'll tell you, for people like yourself, if you're going through a thing with your kids and maybe they're just born, maybe they're little, maybe you're worn out, just know that, it goes by really, really fast, and just try to enjoy it as much as you possibly can, because I see pictures of you and your wife and your little guy, and I'm thinking to myself, dude, you're still in the, don't do this, don't do that. You're going to burn your, don't get burned. Don't walk behind the car. Don't run into the street. Don't chase the ball into the street. Don't put your finger in the light socket. You're still in that keep them alive kind of mode. But eventually it goes from that to, they become their own people, and it becomes very enjoyable. Anyway, so it's my long-winded way of saying happy birthday to my oldest daughter. And I love her a lot. So
25 years, you've given me plenty of good advice through those 25 years that now I've been able to apply for 3 years with Levi. So thank you for that, and kudos to Anna. That's spectacular. 25 years. Yeah. Way to go. That's awesome.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. And then, of course, welcome to the Krueger Show. We're live. Welcome to the Pig and a Pickle Krueger Show. Yeah. It is 11:16 West Coast, 2:16 East Coast. And, of course, Sam is in the house, and you're watching live on YouTube. But do us a favor. Smash the like button, hit subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification bell turned on. Make sure it's turned on so you never miss a show. And remember, once the live stream wraps up, you can catch the full replay anywhere you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever your favorite platform is. Just search The Krueger Show, and you'll find us. And we've got a lot to get into today, so we'll jump right in. But I do want to thank our sponsors. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. Thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades. Great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades to find a location near you. They're in Capitola Mall. They're in Visalia Mall. We're also brought to you by Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles. They're at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Thanks to Anthony Catania. He's at 831-521-5264, and you can follow him at Sharp Corners 831 on the gram, as the kids like to say, and LearnKey Upskill Academy. They're an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less, whether you're interested in IT, cybersecurity. Could be a number of fields. They offer 30 certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. They've been in business for almost 4 decades. They've helped over 200,000 students, and they place about 100 a month in well-paying jobs. So thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy. The links are in the description for all of the Krug Show sponsors.
That is beautiful. And thanks.
We're off and running.
Yeah, Larry, this
Go
is
ahead.
This is a
and
big
tell people, Sammy, tell people about your channel, because Sammy's got a brand new channel.
Yes.
And you and the great Andrew Siciliano have put together a phenomenal channel. Tell people about it and where they can find you so they can like and subscribe at your channel as well.
I love it. Thanks so much, Larry. Yes, please like and subscribe at Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam. That's where we exist. You can catch the Thinking Out Loud podcast with Andrew Siciliano and Sam Betesh right here. But yeah, catch us on YouTube at Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam. Search it and find us right there. And we are live on both of these today with Krug Show, and we thank you for that. Thanks, Larry, for having us. Mondays have been huge with NFL, and look at the gift that we got given today.
Yeah, so why don't we jump right into it? The big story of the day, and we'll add it to the screen, is this big trade. The Steelers get Jalen Ramsey. They get Jonnu Smith, which is kind of an interesting one, too, because they already had Darnell Washington. They've got Freiermuth. So you could argue the Steelers, have tight ends, but they added Jonnu Smith. And they get a 2027 7th-round pick. And they trade to the Dolphins, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who once upon a time was a Dolphin and was traded from the Dolphins and is now traded back to the Dolphins. And they get the Dolphins also get a 2027 5th-round pick. My first thought before, when I just thought it was Ramsey for Minkah was, you know what? Normally I would say the team that gets the corner is the team that gets the win. But I actually think Minkah, as the younger player, is probably the better player, the more valuable player. And I think the Dolphins win. I mean, they get Minkah in a 5th for Ramsey, who was making $21 million a year, Jonnu Smith, and a 7th. I mean, I think that's a good deal. I think the Dolphins are the winners here. What do you think?
So, a couple of things. I want to make this about something that you and I have spoken a lot about. We have to address the NFC West here, because this was something that we thought was going to maybe be an arms race. We had just talked about it last week. We had Lige on, and we were kind of thinking about the Ramsey thing, and we were talking about the fact that, okay, he's been a Ram. Maybe Ramsey would go back to the Rams. Of course, you had Sean McVay claiming that maybe the money or something else wouldn't quite work out for them, and it didn't seem likely. And then we were kind of dreaming of scenarios where, okay, maybe the Niners come in. If the Rams aren't going to get him, maybe the Niners now steal Ramsey, and all of a sudden you got Saleh with this opportunity to work with someone in the talent pool that Ramsey is, and it's not happening for either. So I want to address that first, that part of this is where he's not going. So this doesn't change the math in the NFC West whatsoever. And we were both dreaming of scenarios where that's where he would be. I don't.
Well, I mean, he laid out his criterion, right? And his criterion was, I want to be on a winner, and I want to be on the West Coast. I want to be in warm weather. Well, the Steelers are not a winner, not on the West Coast, and not in warm weather. So
this is different. So I like what you're saying about Minkah. I think there's sort of a name wow factor, and Jalen still gives you more than Minkah. I mean, if you're in Pittsburgh, Minkah is a leader, and he means something, and he likes to say things that are catchy as well during the season. I mean, Minkah's not afraid to speak, just like Jalen, so that's cool. But Jalen is still more name value here than Minkah. I think you're right to give a measured approach to this. You got to look at age when it comes to these things. You got to look at, obviously, the draft pick. We're 5th or 7th, so clearly you got more value there. So maybe you're right. Miami might have gotten a little bit more, but I can't deny, outside of this happening in the NFC West, or for the Eagles, obviously I'm an Eagles fan. That would have been huge to see him with the Eagles. That would have been lovely. But outside of those moves, I'm actually excited, Larry. This changes the temperature. This changes the temperature in the AFC North, and this changes what I thought about the Steelers. It's almost not to say that Minkah for Jalen immediately as a swap makes them better, but now I'm starting to look at the totality of what the Steelers have done, right? We all know that Rodgers is sort of the face of the new look Steelers here, but when you start to look at now Jonnu, DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey. Remember Darius Slay also. So is Slay part of the reason that Minkah became a little bit expendable? If you're talking about for one season, yes, you can say Slay for Fitzpatrick. Maybe that's possible. Obviously, you got Joey Porter there as well. So there's something to be said. Now, when you look at the totality of what the Steelers have done, Larry, I'm actually excited. The Rodgers thing was not that exciting to me because we had heard about it we had months to think that Rodgers was going to be a Steeler. And it didn't necessarily say, wow, this is such an improvement on Russell Wilson. The Rodgers thing we still think could be even with what Russell Wilson gave them. But now, on top of the other moves, this is a bold offseason for the Steelers, and I don't think we're necessarily used to saying that about the Steelers. If this is a team that was upset with the fact that they lost 5 games in a row to end the season, including 2 to the Ravens, one which ended their season in the playoffs, obviously, you can't look much different. I'd argue maybe the Raiders are the only team that looks that much dramatically different than the Steelers do right now. Am I right?
I don't like the Steelers. I mean, you're talking to the wrong guy this year. I think the Steelers are circling the drain. I think Mike Tomlin's in a world of hurt, and I think they're going to have a bad year. I think both these teams are going to have bad years. I think this. Okay, so let's talk about this trade for a second.
Yes.
Why was this trade made? Okay, it was made for a couple reasons. One, it was made because the Dolphins could not afford to keep Javon Holland in free agency, and Javon Holland is their stud safety.
Yeah.
So they looked up and said, oh, we have Javon Holland. He's awesome. But they couldn't re-sign him. And so he left. And so what do they have at safety? They have, Melon Fonwu, Ashton Davis, Patrick McMorris, Elijah Campbell, Jordan Colbert, John Saunders. I mean, they got nothing. So the Dolphins badly had to have Minkah to replace Javon Holland. So I think they're reeling. And then they trade Ramsey, but look at their corners. The Dolphins corners. Here are the Dolphins corners. Storm Duck, Cater Kohu, Artie Burns,
yep,
Cam Smith, Jason Marshall, 5th round pick, Kendall Sheffield. They don't have good corners. So, they just traded a corner. The Dolphins just traded a corner for a safety, but they don't have great corners, but they had worse safeties. So I understand it from the Dolphins' perspective. From the Steelers' perspective, I'm not loving the Steelers this year. I think this is a bad year for the Steelers. One, you're bringing in, first of all, you've got this this is another year where the Steelers are going to get to the end of the year and they're not going to have won a playoff game and they don't have their quarterback of the future on the roster. And it's been that way for years now. So, Aaron Rodgers,
unless Howard shows him something, right? I mean, there's sort of
6th round pick, from Ohio State.
Larry, as a Niners fan, you got to understand that sometimes the late round drop pick at quarterback works out. I mean, we don't know. That
that's a real flyer, though.
It is.
I mean,
it is,
and he's not even number 2, to be honest. I mean, it's probably Mason Rudolph.
He's not made it. Yeah,
but I mean,
course.
So they lost Najee Harris. Their running backs are Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren, and they signed Kenneth Gainwell away from the Steelers. They also have Trey Sermon or Darrell Patterson.
Yeah.
What'd I say?
You said signed him from the Steelers, but from
the Eagles,
to
the Steelers. So, so you got an older quarterback. You have DK Metcalf, who I think is one of the most overrated players in football because he's just not a good route runner.
Wait a second. That's a wild statement.
DK Metcalf is just not. He only runs go routes. I mean, I talked to Mooney Ward.
Yeah,
Mooney Ward used to talk about how if he wasn't running a go route, they wasn't worried at all about him. He's just big and fast. He's straight line fast, But DK is it's I don't think he's that special. I really don't. I mean, he's special physically.
We're going to talk about the NFC West later. I think Seattle's going to be hurting without DK. I think DK is a special player. I think he is someone you have to consider when you're game planning. That when you're game planning against an offense with DK Metcalf, he has to be accounted for. And if Rodgers, what he did with Devontae Adams at the end of last season with the Jets, not a special season for the Jets, but if you look specifically at the last 8 games, what they were able to do together, there was something there, and Rodgers could develop that with DK. We've got footage from months ago with them hanging out in L.A., throwing the ball to each other. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be magic, but DK Metcalf's the kind of guy who can impact a game. I don't want to say you're talking about the most overrated players. I can't see DK Metcalf on that list. I think that's a little much. And a go route.
He had 5. He only had 5 touchdowns.
It was not his best season, but maybe. But again, a lot of times with the receiver,
he hasn't had double-digit touchdowns though, Sam, in the last 3 years. He hasn't had he's had 5, 8, and 6 touchdowns the last 3 years.
Yes, but if he's
his catches have gone, his production's going the other way. I mean, he's gone from 90 receptions to 66 the last 2 years.
Do you like him better than Pickens here with Rodgers? I do. If you're just talking about that, I like him better than Pickens. And again, I'm not here to say the Steelers are a Super Bowl contender. What I mean is this. I was ready to have the Steelers off the list of winning seasons. Again, Tomlin's never had a losing season. I was ready to say they were due for a losing season. And this, it's funny. I don't look at it as Ramsey alone, even though that's really what the addition here is. Obviously, Jonnu as well a little bit. But it's just now it's sort of made me look at everything that had been done. I at least love when a team addresses what happened the season before and says we need it to change. And it did need to change. If this was a team rolling back Russell Wilson again, nobody would have been excited about it. The Rodgers thing at least changes the temperature on that. And now Ramsey is someone who can give that defense a playmaking ability. Has Ramsey been prime Ramsey in the last 2 seasons? You could argue that. Obviously, Miami was nothing special with him last season. We understand he was in and out of games as well. If Ramsey's healthy, if Ramsey's on the field, if Slay's giving them 15 games as well, this defense can now do what it did last season, which is make the playoffs. Now, again, what's the bar in Pittsburgh, Larry? It's got to be we haven't won a playoff game, right? I mean, this is a team that hasn't won a playoff game in the Watt era. They have not won a playoff game. That's terrible. That's obviously something they want to address. Does this make them a playoff winning team? It probably just makes them a playoff team, but I thought they were not going to be a playoff team this season, and now I'm ready to say they are. That's it. I don't want to be over exuding what I think here from an excitement standpoint, but Pittsburgh went from clearly they're not going to be a playoff team to they're going to be right in it again. They're going to make the playoffs.
I don't think so. I think the Steelers are going to be that team that early in the year people are going to be like, they could win it all. And late in the year, they're going to be like, it's over. They need regime change. Why? Because look at the schedule. The schedule. The schedule from November on is brutal. If they don't get off to a hot start, if for whatever reason they don't get off to a hot start, they're cooked. Because from November on, this is what their schedule is: the Colts at Chargers, the Bengals at Bears. Bears are tough to beat in Chicago. Then they get Buffalo at Baltimore, Miami at Detroit, at Cleveland, and another game against Baltimore.
Well, I like to say
it's rough, man.
It's true.
That's rough. Those are a lot of good teams there. Baltimore, Detroit, Baltimore again, Buffalo, Cincinnati,
dude, the
Chargers.
division's brutal. The bottom line is any team that's in this division.
6 tough games after November the 9th. I mean,
any team in this division, when you put the schedule up, it looks brutal because you're talking about playing Cincinnati and Baltimore, etc. So it can be a difficult path. It always is. I like to say this about the Rams, about the Niners, about the Eagles, about the Cowboys, and definitely about the Steelers and the Ravens and the Bengals. Until you play those division foes at least one time, I don't like to judge the season at all. Whatever you've done before as a Rams fan, whatever you've done before you played the Niners is cute, but that's the game that is the barometer. That's how I see it. Those teams that you mark yourself against in the division. An Eagles season is great, but if you haven't played the Cowboys at least once, it's tough to say that you've met your match at this point and we really know what you are. And for this Steelers team, it is the Ravens. They need to play the Ravens once. I don't love that those Ravens games are both late in the season. And this past season, we knew the Steelers were a serious contender when? Only once. They beat the Ravens the first time around, and we said, oh, this team can do something special. Then, of course, look how it unraveled. They lose that second game to the Ravens. Of course, they lose a then third game to the Ravens in the wild card, and it's done. They're cooked. That Week 18 game could be the difference between making the playoffs and not. I say this is a playoff team. The division to me looks similar every year because you get Cincinnati and Baltimore on it twice, and that's tough for any team no matter what. So they've always got a certain bar they got to get to. Tomlin figures it out a lot of times. It does feel like they figure it out with paper clips and glue, right? I mean, we don't really understand the Pittsburgh. It's never like Pittsburgh comes into the season, you're thinking, wow, this team's going to be dominant offensively, right? Since Ben has been gone, certainly we don't think that whatsoever. We still don't think that with Rodgers, Jonnu Smith, DK Metcalf. We don't see this as an explosive offense. Maybe Jalen Warren's finally able to be the guy. If he is, he's shown that flash. Of course, it helped. He had Najee Harris there as well. But if Jalen is that guy, we can get that out of this team. It'll come down to those divisional games. We both expect Cincinnati to be better, so that's going to hurt here. This Pittsburgh team, at least, Larry, if you're a Steelers fan, don't you like this move today? Aren't you better than you were yesterday? Don't you feel, how about this? Don't you feel better about your organization today that they're aggressive about addressing the situation as to how the season ended just a few months ago?
I don't. I mean, you already had an ancient secondary that just got older.
Yeah,
Darius Slay
doesn't make them younger. He is.
Darius Slay's 34 years old. I mean, Minkah was 28. You just traded him for a guy who was 30. So you have age in your secondary. Darius Slay, Juan Thornhill, Jalen Ramsey. You got some age there for sure. And did they need a corner? Yeah, they needed a corner, but I mean, they're covered in that they have a corner now. They needed a corner more than they needed a safety. They had good depth at safety. They drafted Sebastian Castro from Iowa. They have Deshaun Elliott. They signed Juan Thornhill, but Thornhill's older and he's had injuries. And Slay's older. Now you add Ramsey, who's also older, and you have T.J. Watt holding out. T.J. Watt is the teeth of your defense. He's your best defensive player. So right now you don't have T.J. Watt, and you've got an old secondary. You don't have Najee Harris. You have an old quarterback. You have a really rough schedule after November. You got a pretty young offensive line. I don't know, man. I don't think DK's not a great ball skills guy. He's not a guy who's going to make Aaron Rodgers look amazing. He's a go pattern guy, so he'll create some room. But then your other receivers are what? Robert Woods. Robert Woods is ancient.
No, Woods
Calvin Austin, Skoranek, Roman Wilson. I don't like their receivers. I really don't. I think this Steeler team, I think the Dolphins and the Steelers are both going to take a backslide. I like other teams, in the AFC more than them. I think the Patriots get off the canvas and they're heard from in that division. And I definitely think Cincinnati and Baltimore are the class of the AFC, North. So I don't know. I mean, I think Rodgers is on paper definitely an upgrade off Russell Wilson and Justin Fields.
Yeah.
But he's not an upgrade when you factor in that he's probably going to wind up taking some hits. He's probably going to wind up, getting hurt. And I don't think this team is going to be able to win games with Mason Rudolph, Will Howard, or Skylar Thompson. So I don't love the receiving core. I don't love the running backs. I do like their young offensive line. And obviously they added another receiving tight end here. But defensively, T.J. Watt is absolutely everything to them. He's unsigned, and you got a lot of age in your secondary. You got older. You just got rid of a playmaker in Minkah. So I think the Steelers are going to start fast, have a couple of early September wins where people are like, whoa, Rodgers in Pittsburgh. Wow, look at this. And then Rodgers is going to get hurt, And I think the Steelers are going to have a rough second half. And by this point next year, we're going to be talking about Mike Tomlin on the hot seat. I really believe it. And I don't think Miami's going to be great either. I think Miami, this deal helps Miami a little bit. They get a playmaker in Minkah, but Miami lost a better player in Javon Holland. And they, yes, you have Minkah, but what else do you have on the corner? And Miami's pass rush, I mean, they added Kenneth Grant and Jordan Phillips, two big, thick, defensive tackles, but who's their edge? I mean, you've got Jalen Phillips, Chop Robinson, Mo Kamara. I don't, Bradley Chubb. It's not bad, but I mean, there's a lot of projection there. Phillips has had injuries. Chubb's had injuries. The other guys are kind of young and unproven. I don't know. I think the Dolphins, it's a rush and cover game. I don't think they have enough rush, and I don't think they have enough coverage.
Well, we'll see at Week 15. We'll have the Steelers and the Dolphins. So maybe this will mean something. That could be the Jalen Minkah revenge game. We'll see how that goes. Monday Night Football scheduled right now, unless they flex it. Unfortunately,
I'll make a prediction.
Yeah,
there'll be no Rodgers and no Tua in that game.
Wow,
that
okay,
game
that's a bold.
That
prediction.
game will be
that. Okay.
That game will be most likely. Who's the backup again?
So
Mason Rudolph.
Mason Rudolph. You got
against
Mason
Zach Wilson.
And Wilson. Wow, what a game. What a game we'll get at that point. All right, well, Larry, I like that prediction. To me, this is just a 9-8 conversation. This is a 9-8, 8-9 conversation, right? This is just they're teetering on that. That's the bar at which I have the Steelers. 9-8, 8 or 9, 8-9. Which one will it be? I'm going to side with Tomlin. Say they figure out a way to get to 9-8. Whether it's Mason, whether it's Rodgers, whether it's Howard, they're going to do it. They've done it with less. And I think they've addressed needs, and they've at least said, we don't appreciate the way it ended last season. We know we have to get better. And they weren't going to have a dramatic quarterback move. Everyone had them taking Shedeur Sanders in the first round. They clearly did not do that, so they don't have this dramatic shakeup at quarterback. But Rodgers is different than Russell, and if he can give us what he gave the Jets at the end of last season, we'll see something interesting out of Pittsburgh. We don't have to hit it too much more than that, Larry. To me, I was more excited. I was more excited if it was an arms race between the Rams and the Niners for Ramsey. I felt like that was a swing there. This one less so, and we didn't have any rumors about Pittsburgh, so good for them. They kept it quiet. They made it happen, and I think when you do things like this is the kind of splash where you say, we don't love what happened last season with what we had, and we're moving the pieces around.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Dolphins went 8-9 last year. Steelers went 10-7. I like Dolphins to go like maybe 7-10 this year, and I like the Steelers to go 7-10 this year. I think they're both gonna fall on hard times.
I'm with you on Dolphins. I just don't. There's nothing. The Dolphins. It runs through Tua, and I hate. I don't want to. We don't have to talk about injuries, but what it's been to this point, I don't think anyone's excited about Tua at this point because of what happened last season and what his history has been. So I see 7-10 Dolphins as well. I think that division's better. You talked about New England already. I agree with that. So I don't love Miami. I think Pittsburgh finds 9-8.
They're a good organization. There's no question, and they've figured out a way to maximize. But I just think that the momentum from last year, 0-4 to finish the year, I think they're going to carry some of that into this year.
Yeah, and it's a loss in the playoffs. 0-5. They lost 5 straight. It was disgusting.
Yeah. So, all right, let's talk NFC West. I saw a breakdown where somebody went through position by position and said who was the best team in the NFC West at every position. I have the Niners as the best team at 1, 2, 3, only 3 spots.
I have something, by the way, quickly before you.
Okay.
Do you have receiver and tight end as one group?
No.
Okay.
2 different groups.
Keep going.
So I have the Niners. Have the best player at running back. They have the best. I really think the 49ers have the best O-line, believe it or not, in this division. I know the Niners O-line gets ripped a lot.
Well, they have the best single player. They have the best single offensive lineman for sure.
Yeah, but I think they have the best line too, because Arizona, I really only like Paris Johnson on their line. The Rams, I like Steve Avila. The Seahawks have a really bad line. I like the Niner line the best. So I would say the Niners have the best running back, the best offensive line, the best linebackers. I had as far as I had the Rams had the best quarterback, the best receiver, the best D-line, the best head coach, and the best GM.
That's a lot.
Okay.
Say that again.
And
Say that again for Rams. Say that again for Rams.
Rams, I have the best quarterback in Stafford. They have the best wide receivers led by Puka and Devontae. They have the best D-line. They have the best led by Fisk and Verse. And they have the best head coach in McVay. And they have the best GM in Les Snead.
Okay, so let's just if we were assigning a number total to each of those categories, the Rams just took 4 of the most significant ones, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I mean quarterback,
coach,
wide receiver, D line, and head coach and GM.
I mean that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Those are significant. Yeah. Okay. Keep
I
going.
have Arizona has the best tight end in Trey McBride. Some people want to say that's controversial.
I'm glad you're with me. No, I'm glad you're with me on that. Yep.
They have the best safety combos led by Budda Baker.
Mm-hmm.
And I probably say they have the best special teams, but I put the Niners as last on special teams, and I have no idea who's first, second, and third. But
yeah, that's more about 2024 than it is 2025, probably. But you're right. To this point, there's no reason to say otherwise.
And then Seattle, I don't have Seattle as the best at anything except for corner. They have the best corners with Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen, and I'll give their corners the top grade. So,
Seattle's issue also, Larry. Seattle's issue is they don't have the best offensive line in the division. They're not even close. And from a quarterback
they have the worst
standpoint,
quarterback.
I didn't want to say worse. What I wanted to say is the combination of offensive line and quarterback, and I know those are separate categories, but obviously they affect each other pretty significantly. That's Darnold's greatest weakness. It's the pressure that makes Darnold a different quarterback. The protection he got in Minnesota, obviously the weapons he had at wide receiver, that was the most special we've ever seen Darnold, and it will be different in Seattle. From a protection standpoint, it's going to be so much different, and you said it, yes, they like Paris, but outside of that, not a lot on the offensive line that they're crazy about, and unless that offensive line is a lot different, and frankly, they didn't even get, on paper, the run game looks great, but Charbonnet and Walker didn't give you what you really wanted last season either.
And there's talk they may trade Walker, So I have Seattle dead last in the division at quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, and offensive line. They're the worst offense across the board. And then on defense, I have them with the second best D line, the second best linebackers, the second best safeties, the best corners. Third best head coach, and second best GM. So, I think Seattle is going to be good defensively. I don't think they're going to be very good offensively.
So you kind of set it up. I mean, is this, look on the screen here, this is Vegas now has it. It was at one point, the Niners and Rams were both at 155 just 3 weeks ago, and now it's shifted. Niners have the slight edge at plus 145, Rams at plus 175, Cardinals and Seahawks bringing up the rear there. Plus 525 for the Cardinals and plus 550 for the Seahawks. I mean, is that how you see the division shaking out?
I think Arizona, Arizona's got, they're a bad organization. They're the worst organization. And that's hard to overcome. But I think that Arizona has a little bit more going in there for them than Seattle does. I think Seattle's going to wind up last this year based on Darnold and their offense. I don't love DK Metcalf, but I like him more than Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Kupp overall. I wanted to have that conversation a little bit with you. That could be an incredible outlet for Darnold. since again, if the line is not as good, which means your Jefferson Addison is obviously deeper down the field, and he had time to throw the ball there. He'll have less time, arguably, here in Seattle, and maybe Kupp underneath becomes a good outlet for him. We know he doesn't have this immediate sort of tight end that you love throwing the ball to, and Fant. Does Kupp become? Do we see a flash of what Kupp was a couple of seasons ago? If now Darnold's finding him as that guy.
No, I think Kupp will be derailed by minor injuries. That's usually what happens to older receivers. It's a quad, it's a hammy, it's a this, it's a that. He'll have soft tissue pulls. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba is a terrific receiver, but their other receivers are young, and except for Kupp, and then Fant, I think is just kind of not that great. So I just think that they're the combination of Darnold, their weapons, their line, defensive head coach, losing Metcalf. I think Seattle's going to struggle offensively, and I think by the end of the year, I think Darnold's going to be Darnold. I think he's going to be Darnold. I think he's going to turn it over. I think he's going to have some injuries. I think we're going to get a look at the other quarterbacks. And then I think Milroe's going to come in. He's going to flash some really good things. He's going to win a game or two. And then they're going to be like, oh, we need to go with Milroe. And then I think Darnold's a one and done there. I think at the end of the year, they're going to go with Milroe. So I think Seattle is going to backslide just on the weakness of their offense. And, yeah, so I like Arizona. If I had to pick it, I would go Niners to win the division, Rams to finish second, Cardinals to finish third, and the Seahawks to finish last.
Okay, so you're going with Vegas there. I could see that. I'm going to say the Rams find a way to win this division, even though I know we've dissected both schedules, and it's probably going to come down to the first place, last place slide there between those two teams. I mean, if you go here, if we're really splitting hairs between Niners and Rams, and you look here at the you start to look at really the schedules. I've said this many times. The difference between the Rams and the Niners schedule comes down to 3 games. If you want to pick out 3 games that are going to define the seasons for these two teams, look at week 3 where the Rams have the Eagles. That's a game where the Niners play the Giants. Week 6 where the Rams play the Ravens. That's a game where the Niners play the Browns. And then week 15 where the Rams play the Lions. That's the Niners playing the Bears. That's the difference between first place and last place schedule. Those 3 games are massive swing games where when you're looking at the Niners, you're looking at the Rams schedule and you're seeing Eagles, Ravens, Lions, and maybe you're saying those are 3 losses. And then when you look at the Niners schedule, go down and circle Giants week 9, Browns week 13, Bears week 17, and you're saying that's 2-1, 3-0, right? I mean, if you're just doing the win-loss game, that's kind of where you go with those schedules, and that could be the difference. On paper, what you said, though, about the Rams, I think is really interesting, Larry. I want you to say it again. What positions you think the Rams are better than every team in this division? Quarterback, head coach,
definitely.
GM.
You got to go Stafford, right? You got to give Stafford his, even though he's older.
Yeah,
you got to give him his. I think you got to give the Rams the receivers. I think you got to give him Puka and Devontae. Even though I could give that to Arizona, but I would give it to the Rams, and then. I don't know about special teams, but definitely I would give the Rams the D-line. And I like McVay and Snead.
Yeah.
But I don't love the Rams back 7. We'll see. I mean, the Niners went 1-5 inside the division last year. The Rams went 4-2. So
that's going to be different.
That's a big one.
We know the Niners aren't going to go 1-5 in the division again. We know that's not.
I mean, here's the thing: the Rams are a little bit. I think the Rams are not as good as people think. They won 10 games and they look good at the end of the year, and they played Philly the toughest of any of the teams. So people are like, "Oh, the Rams. Oh, look at the Rams." The Rams. I don't know if you know this, but the Rams had the same point differential as the Dolphins.
That's awful.
They were the Rams won the division. The Rams were the only team to win their division with a negative point differential. The Rams were minus 19. in point differential. So they got hot at the end. They look good, but I think people are thinking that they're better than they are. They got outscored by 19 points on the year. They went 5-4 at home. They don't have much of a home field. They're 5-3 on the road. I mean, the Niners take that place over, but they went 4-2 in the division, and the Niners went 1-5.
And
so
one category I want to look at receivers. If you made it receivers and tight end, which I did when I went through the teams, Arizona to me is number one because McBride makes that difference. I understand Kittle makes a big difference for San Francisco, obviously, but if you take receivers and tight end into one category, Arizona's number one in the division for sure. Looking at the Rams and the Niners here, I also think the Rams look at last season for a couple of things. Number one, you could argue that also week one could have beaten Detroit. If they were a little more healthy, they lost to Detroit in overtime, and there were 3 plays at the end of that game. They had the lead. Stafford missed Cooper Kupp on a wide-open third-down conversion that would have ended the game. Kyron Williams stepped out of bounds, giving Detroit more time under the 2-minute warning. It was a brutal play, and they dropped what would have been a game-sealing interception before that game went to overtime. So the Rams, had they beaten Detroit, I think you'd be looking at, if you said the Rams beat Detroit last year and then had the Eagles on the ropes, then yes, there's all of this momentum. But of course, you have to remember they sacked Darnold 9 times in that playoff game. Yes, they had to play in Arizona, not in LA. And yeah, they had a chance against Philly, but then again, on the 2 biggest plays of their season offensively, they fell apart in the offensive line, and Jalen Carter blew up the season, and that was it for them. And they let Saquon rush for 4 60-yard touchdowns in 2 games combined against them. You're not going to beat a team if you do that, and it didn't happen for them either time in the snow or in LA. It didn't happen. The other thing about LA to remember, you love Stafford so much, right? I know that you have Stafford.
Yeah.
I actually have Purdy ahead of Stafford, okay?
I mean, but Stafford's 37. So
he's 37, and remember the draft, Larry. We spoke about this right after the draft. There was a sneaky move here. The reason that I loved the Giants draft is actually because of something that happened to the Rams. The Rams were trying to trade for Jackson Dart in the first round. The Rams don't normally have. They had a first-round draft pick last year. Obviously, he became a defensive rookie of the year finalist, so good for them. The Rams clearly figured it out, and the draft was exciting for them last year with a first-round draft pick. They had a first-round draft pick this year, and they were going to draft Jackson Dart, and the Giants came in, traded back into the first round, and took Dart ahead of the Rams. That was a real bully move, a nice, powerful move from the Giants front office, which has gotten a lot of shit, obviously, over the last year with Saquon and everything else. That was a big move by the Giants to get Dart. The Rams circled him. They wanted him, and they then traded out of the first round and didn't get him. So there's clearly some thought to Stafford not being the answer to all of their questions, including the fact they also, remember, Larry, let Stafford talk to other teams. Remember for a moment where we thought Stafford was going to be he was going to be a Jet for a moment. There was some fun talk about Stafford going somewhere else, and then the Rams came in, restructured the deal, and made it work. But clearly there was a moment in time where the Rams said maybe Stafford isn't everything we think he is.
I mean, I just think that the Rams. First of all, there's several things I like about the Rams. I mean, I really like, I like Stafford. I like the makeup of their wide receiver core. You have Devontae, Puka, Atwell, Mario Williams from Tulane, the former SC kid, is a good player. I mean, he's an undrafted player, but he's a good player. Their line's definitely improved. They're just ordinary at tight end. I think the running backs are interesting. Corum, I've always been a fan of. Jarquez Hunter, I've been a fan of his as well. But to me, where I'm picking against the Rams is the Rams are paper thin on defense. And I love the addition of Poona Ford. I mean, that really helps them in the middle. And drafting Chris Paul Jr., Chris Poo Paul from Ole Miss in the 5th round was a great steal. But if you look at the Rams depth chart, they don't have a single backup defensive player that's worth a damn at all. I mean, Chris Paul would be the best backup they have. They got a couple other rookies, Josiah Stewart from Michigan, Ty Hamilton from Ohio State. They're not bad. But, I mean, across the board, their starters on defense look good. But their backup at the same spot is a disaster. So their first team line's Braden Fisk and Byron Young, Kobe Turner, Poona Ford. That's huge, a really good line. I say it's the best defensive line in the division.
Clearly, yeah.
But the backups are Dawan Johnson, Tyler Davis, Ty Hamilton, Josiah Stewart, Larrell Murchison, Jack Heflin. I mean, it's just not a great group. And then if you look at linebacker, their backup linebackers, Troy Reeder, Chris Paul, I like, but Brennan Jackson. Their backup DBs, Kobe Durant, Jalen McCullough, Tanner Ingle, Emmanuel Forbes, Charles Woods. I mean, that's bad. If you just look at their first team, D, you'd be like, hey, Quentin Lake is nice. Cam Kinchins, Cam Curl, pretty good safeties. Witherspoon kind of came into his own last year. You got Darius Williams. Hey, they look pretty good. But then you just look, if they have every single backup on their defense is outside of Chris Paul is just a guy.
But that's what backups are.
Guys.
But that's what backups are, and sometimes.
But that's not what the Niners have. I mean, the Niners have real backups. Seattle has real backups. Arizona's got some real backups.
I want to talk about Arizona quickly on one thing. I went into a deep dive last night and read a little bit about their general manager, and he's the least known general manager in this whole group.
Fort. Yeah.
Monty Austin-Fort, go look at his background. For those that think, all right, clearly John Lynch has made a name for himself, Les Snead, obviously, and John Schneider is still probably getting accolades from the Legion of Boom in the draft class that went to back-to-back Super Bowls and threw the ball instead of giving it to Marshawn on the 1-yard line against the Patriots. But those are the GMs that all get mentioned, right? If you were playing just a name that GM, Schneider, Snead, and Lynch would come off the board. Nobody knows who Monty is, right?
Yeah.
Austin-Fort.
And he's done a nice job.
But look at what he has slowly done in Arizona, and he gets the cachet and the extra feather in his cap, and we should all give him the credit. He was part of the Patriots dynasty in their scouting department. So this is a guy that identifies talent and understands how to build without superstar names, and he's doing it in Arizona very slowly and steadily, and some of those names have really popped, and this team is to be reckoned with because you actually like their quarterback. In fact, I'm not even sure. You didn't tell me who necessarily. Did you say that you liked Purdy as the second best quarterback in this conference? In this
I got Kyler third.
I know you like Kyler a lot. That must have been tough for you because I know you believe in Kyler, specifically what he did against the Niners last season. But Kyler has the ability, and Budda Baker said something. You and I were texting back and forth, Larry. Budda Baker said that Kyler is, to him, the most underrated player in the entire league, and this is a guy that sees him obviously every day in practice. Kyler's got unbelievable game-breaking ability at the position, which we all know is most important. And if we think the league is moving in the direction of course, mobile, agile quarterbacks who can also be accurate, Kyler can do all those things. He doesn't have the size of Josh Allen, but he can do all of those things.
No, I love Kyler. I mean, I'm a Kyler guy. I really do like Kyler a lot. There's maturity that needs to happen there, and I don't know how all in he is, but he's, to me, he's a franchise quarterback for sure. I mean, he's a franchise quarterback. He's a top 10 NFL quarterback.
Yeah, I think if anyone takes a lesson from today, you every time you and I start talking about the NFC West, it becomes this really natural thing to just say Niners and Rams. And yes, we're looking at the Vegas odds here, and yes, Niners and Rams are at the top, and there's a clear break between Niners, Rams, and Cardinals, Seahawks, but Arizona, remember that this division was wide open last season. And of course, remember it was Seattle and the Rams that it came down to. We all know the Niners had a brutal season, but Seahawks were in it until the last week of the season. And the Cardinals, every team in this division outside of the Niners really had a spot in first place during the year last year. Later, in the second half of the year, all of these teams claimed first place at one point, except for the Niners. So the Cardinals, there was one play in the Cardinals-Lions game last season that was called back on a penalty that would have changed that game dramatically. The Cardinals could have beaten the Lions in that game as well. The Cardinals will be, and if it doesn't happen immediately this season, in the next 2 seasons, the Cardinals are going to creep back in. And they're going to be a team that the Niners and Rams have as a thorn in their side. The Cardinals are to be reckoned with. It could happen next season. I still think it's the McBride that could be that difference. I think McBride is ready to be an absolute WWE level superstar in this league. I think he's going to set the bar at tight end for the next decade. And if that happens, and if he's in the end zone more often than he was, because a lot of those touchdowns went to Wilson instead of Trey McBride last season for some reason. But if McBride's in the end zone a lot more, people are going to start to recognize that name the way they should. And if Kyler and him are on the page that way, scary.
I love the Cardinals secondary. I mean, you've got Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson at safety. You also have Dadrion Taylor Demerson from Texas Tech, who's just a playmaker. You also have Jamie Robinson, the former Florida State kid. So that you got a lot of good safeties. And then at corner, you drafted Will Johnson out of Michigan. You have Max Melton out of Rutgers. You have Garrett Williams. Keitrell Clark played at Louisville. Denzel Burke, they drafted in the 5th round out of Ohio State. Starling Thomas is a good player. Always loved him. You've got Darren Hall, Elijah Jones. I mean, they've got some nice corners. I mean, they got some good corner depth. So I really like their secondary a lot. And Calais Campbell and Dalvin Tomlinson inside, it's a little bit of a work in progress, but you got Walter Nolan, you got Baron Browning and Josh Sweat off the edges.
They got Sweat. Sweat's a nice one that they obviously got. His last game
Cody
that everyone
Simon.
saw him in, he could have been the Super Bowl MVP. That Josh Sweat everyone believes in. And Calais, if you look back, Calais still was making an impact last season, which is amazing. I don't know how Calais Campbell is still doing it, but he was last season still a playmaker at that position.
Yeah, no, I like the Cardinals. I just, you're leaning on James Conner. You're leaning on, some of their receivers.
That's probably what I like least. I think I like that
Marvin.
least.
Well, I'm not crazy about the receivers. I mean, they have Marvin Harrison, but then Michael Wilson, Zay Jones, Simi Fehoko, Greg Dortch. I'm not loving those receivers.
By the way, you know that PFF, by the way, wide running back wise, PFF, the highest grade in this division on running back is James Conner. Which I think
it should be because he was productive last year. He's for sure, but I mean he's also old.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of mileage. Trey Benson's his backup. They have Dermacado, who runs really really hard. Now DJ Dallas is there as well. They have Michael Carter, the former Jet. So they got some guys, but Connor is established. I mean, if he's healthy and everything, he could be really good. I don't know that I ever really believe in the Cardinals on the line of scrimmage. I love Paris Johnson, the left tackle, but the rest of that line, I love Walter Nolan on their defensive line, but at this point, Dalvin Tomlinson, Calais Campbell, Baron Browning. I mean, Baron Browning's a converted outside linebacker. Stackbacker is now kind of a defensive end. Sweat, I think, is good, but he won't be as good in Arizona. So I don't know. I like the Cardinals in a lot of ways, but I don't love them in the line of scrimmage. So if I was picking the division, I would say I think it's Niners division. I think it's the Rams are going to be their top competition. I think Arizona is going to be probably the exact same, or maybe probably the same as Seattle. But I think Arizona will finish higher because of their quarterback. And I think Seattle's going to, at the end of as I said, by the end of the year, I think they're going to be all fully committed to Jalen Milroe. And because I think Sam Darnold will take sacks, he'll make picks, and he'll have just enough mistakes to get them beat. And I think he'll get hurt. They'll eventually get to Milroe. And when they do, I think he'll have a game or two and he'll win them over. And then they'll go into next year with Milroe.
That would be terrible for them. That's obviously not their plan. So, but yes, I have it largely that way. I could see the Rams winning the division. I think the Rams have one more gasp with Stafford, with getting a prime year out of Devontae, and it could happen again.
So we've broken down the NFC West. We've talked a little bit about Steelers, Dolphins. We wanted to finish with a little Roethlisberger discussion, right?
Yeah, I teed you up on this. I have the sound is down there, Larry. If you want to play this, this is what Roethlisberger said on his podcast.
Aaron in his prime over Patrick now. I think Aaron Rodgers. Well, I would take Aaron in his prime.
Wow.
Over Patrick now. I think Aaron Rodgers at his prime was one of the top few to ever do it. And so is Patrick Mahomes at his prime. Patrick Mahomes is just like entering out of his prime, I think.
You think?
I mean, Aaron Rodgers, yes, I think Patrick Mahomes is a phenomenal. He's going to go down as another arguable GOAT.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's only like one GOAT, but there's GOATs.
Interesting.
Well, okay, so there's Roethlisberger. It's easy to rip that and just be like, what's he saying, Mahomes? Because everybody's in this recency bias. And right now, Mahomes is still on top of the football world. He's probably got, more Super Bowls still to win. He's in his prime. Rodgers is just an older guy. At this point, he's a little crazy, and, he's got his own beliefs, and he's polarizing, and it's real easy to be like, what? But I know exactly what he's talking about. If you said to me, because you got to evaluate the quarterback versus what's going on around the quarterback. So how do you do that? It's very difficult to do. But Aaron Rodgers, I think, has reached a higher level of quarterback play than Mahomes. But Mahomes has had better teams and a better coach, better everything, more support. So, so Mahomes looks indestructible, looks the best. But I really think that if you took, Rodgers when he won the Super Bowl against the Steelers, Roethlisberger also has, he has Rodgers' greatest day fresh in his mind because he lost the Super Bowl to Aaron Rodgers. If he had lost the Super Bowl to Mahomes, maybe he would have Mahomes fresh on the mind. But he lost to Rodgers at his apex. So I think if you really do remember what Rodgers was at the apex of his Hall of Fame career, I think I would agree with Roethlisberger that the best of Rodgers is better quarterback play than the best of Mahomes. And yet Mahomes is going to be considered, right there with Brady because of all the winning, where Rodgers is going to be a distant, nobody's going to say he's better than Brady because he only won the one Super Bowl. And, guys like Plunkett and Eli Manning has 2 Super Bowls, and he's a 500 player in his career. So, it's like Rodgers only has 1, but I do believe that Rodgers at his best was better than Mahomes at his best.
Okay, let's make this argument what it really is. Let's remind everybody, if we can somehow take out of your brain Rodgers as a New York Jet, and forget about whatever pictures you've seen superimposed with him as a Steeler. All right, just take that out of your mind. Let's picture Aaron Rodgers on stage accepting an MVP.
And don't just think about, what did he do against the Niners in the playoffs? Because the Niners beat him head to head 3 times or whatever.
Although he had very good games. In fact, I went through this little practice last night. Rodgers has been in 5 conference championship games. Mahomes is in 7, and Mahomes has 5 wins. Rodgers only has 1, but Rodgers only played 1 of those conference championship games at home. And Mahomes only had to play 1 of those on the road. So that speaks to your point about who had the better team. The other thing is, Roethlisberger, you said, had Rodgers on his best day and maybe at his apex. It wasn't even his apex, Larry. He was a league MVP and a Super Bowl MVP, which is nice. Rodgers was spectacular that season. Rodgers won the MVP 3 times after that Super Bowl. And maybe that's why the argument is, how did he not get back there? But as I just said, he's playing conference championship games, most of those on the road. He played a lot better in those conference championship games. He didn't even throw the championship game he won. You know how many touchdowns he threw in the game he won against the Bears? 0. Couldn't believe that when I was going back and looking at that. Yeah. Now, remember, that was the game I think Caleb Haney had to come in, right, Larry? Remember, that was the game where that was the game where everybody was killing the Bears because of what happened on the sideline. Remember, he couldn't get back into the game. From a quarterback standpoint, not only did they lose their starter at that point, Cavallari's husband, but they also lost the backup in that game. And Haney, the 3rd stringer, had to come into that game for the Bears because Cutler was injured in that game. And that was a game where everyone saw Cutler on the sideline and he was still there. And everyone's wondering, why is he not in the game? It's the NFC Championship game. But that was the one Rodgers won, that NFC Championship game against the Bears. And he did not play well. He actually threw 2 picks in that game also. So Rodgers wasn't even great in the one championship game that he won. He was much better in a few of those losses. And as you know, Kaepernick Kaepernick ended Rodgers' season in the playoffs. It happened. That was not pretty. But Rodgers' best season might have been when the Packers were 15-1 and they lost the divisional, their opening game to the Giants that season. His best season when they were 15-1, they were that Packers team was unbelievable, and somehow lost the game to the Giants in their first playoff game in the divisional game, and that was awful. And that's probably the one that's a really ugly mark against him. But Rodgers, if you go back and remember, if you're just thinking green and yellow, if you can just put him in your mind in a Packers jersey, Rodgers was, can we say this, Larry? This is where the argument really changes. Forget about the term GOAT. Forget about best winner, best leader, even best quarterback, best rating. Best arm talent, I think, is where you start to get people nodding their head yes when you say Rodgers. Rodgers prime, greatest arm talent quarterback that we've ever seen. I think you can pinpoint it to that statement, and I still think that is correct.
He's an incredible talent. I mean, you just have, he had incredible talent, but there's a difference. I mean, it's like, all you need to ask yourself is, it's like, is Jalen Hurts better than Mahomes? No, but he was last year in the Super Bowl. In the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts went 17 of 22 for 221 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. He had a 75.4 QBR. He had a 119.7 QB rating. He ran 11 times for 72 yards and a touchdown. And, yeah, exactly, 6.5 yards a carry. Mahomes was 21 of 32 for 257, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, sacked 6 times, a QBR of 11.4, not 75.4, and a QB rating of 95.4 instead of 119.7.
And remember one other thing, Larry, largely, Jalen Hurts outplayed Mahomes in the first Super Bowl they played against each other. Mahomes.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And Brady obviously beat Mahomes in a Super Bowl where Mahomes played terrible against Tampa because he didn't have either of his tackles. So my point is just this, is that we talk about quarterbacks like, oh, the better quarterback always wins.
Nope.
Jalen Hurts is not the better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes, but he won on Super Bowl Sunday. So if you're going to be one of these guys, it's like, well, the team that wins is always the better team. The quarterback of the team that wins is always better than the quarterback of the team that, well, I mean, come on, man. That's just not the case. Sometimes usually the better team wins, and usually the better team also has the better quarterback. But just because Jalen Hurts beat Mahomes doesn't mean that Hurts is better than Mahomes.
No.
So just because Aaron Rodgers only has the one Super Bowl doesn't mean that he didn't play at a really, really high level. I'll just say this. Aaron Rodgers in his prime made some throws and with some accuracy that Patrick Mahomes can't make. And Patrick Mahomes has got great arm strength, but he doesn't have that kind of touch. He doesn't have that kind of accuracy. Patrick Mahomes, I think Rodgers is a better thrower of the football, if we're really going to boil it down. But the success of Mahomes cannot be denied. It's like, is Tom Brady? I mean, it's like kind of like who's better between Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers? Well, I mean, Tom Brady has all the hardware, but I think Aaron Rodgers probably at his best played at a higher level than Tom Brady.
Now, what's interesting there is you've got a playoff game there between them. I believe that was an NFC Championship game, and that was the one he played at home. I think that was the loss to Tampa, Larry. I believe that was an NFC Championship game that Rodgers lost, and it was to Brady. Right. We didn't get to see them against each other, right? Yeah, we didn't get to see them against each other very often. And I believe Rodgers threw 3 picks in that game. Rodgers was not very good in that game, which he had at home, which a lot of people thought that Rodgers was going to go to the Super Bowl there, and of course he didn't. So that's
I'm just saying that the very, very best of Rodgers, I think, is right there with the greatest quarterback play we've ever seen. Everybody included, Joe, Marino, everybody, Elway. I would say Rodgers has played the quarterback position at an extremely, extremely high level.
Yes.
Separate your thoughts about his thoughts on the vax and his political thoughts and everything. There's all these people that just cannot. They just, oh my God, they lost their mind because this guy, said he was immunized. And, I get it. But I mean, the level of vitriol that was directed at Rodgers was just so wrong.
Yeah,
so wrong. So wrong.
Right.
All these people sitting there, every one of us would lose our freaking mind if we had our medical stuff dragged through the public. But because this guy throws a football and he plays in the NFL now, it just, people treated him so badly when he was just one of many, many people that didn't want to take that vaccine. And I don't want to get into it because I don't want to get into it. But, I mean, just ask yourself, if you hate Rodgers, ask yourself, do you hate Rodgers because of, is it all to do with football, or does none of it have to do with football? And reality, there's all kinds of people walking around who they just cannot put politics aside, and they just hate him for his politics. And I get that, but it's like, you know what? Kurt Schilling's still a Hall of Famer, even if he says crazy shit.
Yep.
And Aaron Rodgers is still the quarterback that he was, despite his views on things. So there's just a lot of people that they just can never separate their personal feelings or their feelings about other issues from a debate that has nothing to do with those issues.
Yeah, you're
We're
right.
debating about who plays the quarterback at a higher level.
Larry, before we go, I want you to tell your story about watching that Super Bowl that Rodgers did beat Roethlisberger, because it's a good one. And also, I wanted to correct Rodgers, by the way, in that NFC Championship which Rodgers did host Brady and lost that game.
Right.
I was wrong. He actually threw 3 touchdown passes in that game, 1 interception. The interception was critical in that game, but he did have a nice day again against Brady, but lost the game. As you said, Larry, it's not always the best quarterback that day.
Who did Rodgers? Didn't he beat your Eagles to go to the Super Bowl?
That runs Vic. He beat Vic. Remember, that was the team. That was the Deshaun Jackson
that
team.
day.
Yeah.
I thought Rodgers played at the highest level
He did.
I've ever seen. As far as on the road,
They were
in
a wild card
Philly,
team. Yep, they were a wild
and
card
he
team.
was putting out patterns like
Yes.
18, 19-yard out patterns. They were like handoffs.
It was
He was
incredible
so accurate. It was unbelievable.
That was
So
an impressive run.
I think Rodgers is crazy and aloof and kind of a weirdo and this and that. But and I wouldn't want him necessarily in the Niners, but I do respect the hell out of the level that he got to as far as quarterback play is concerned. As far as that Super Bowl, so I do have to tell this story. So my wife, I told Sammy this story. So my wife going into Packers Steelers Super Bowl. Our kids, it's like we have our own. I have my own friends from college. My wife has her own friends from college. But then, when your kids are little, you're in play groups and their friends and the parents of their friends kind of become your friends, and you start doing stuff with people that you would never do stuff with normally, because I'm not saying that like, oh, I'm better than you. I'm just saying these aren't my good friends, right? These are just people that invited us to their house. So we get invited to these people's house, friends from school, from the kids, and my wife's like, "Hey, we got invited to go to our friend's house for Steelers Packers," and I'm like, "Oh, honey, I got $500 on the Packers," and I go, "That's like maybe one of the biggest bets I've ever made." I go, you want me to? I go, do they have a rooting interest in this game? She's like, I don't know, actually. Maybe I'll ask. I go, yeah, maybe ask. So I asked her, and then I asked her a couple days before, do they have a rooting interest in the game? They do, but I don't remember what it was because my wife's not a sports fan. So she's like, but you don't mind, right? I'm like, well, I don't mind, but I've got big money on Green Bay, and I know Green Bay's winning this game. So as long as they're not Steeler fans, we're fine. She's like, well, no, they're probably not. They probably like Rodgers too. All right. Now it's the morning of Super Bowl Sunday. We're going over there to their house. We're going to leave at, 1:00. Oh, and by the way, I did find out they're Steelers. I'm like, they're Steeler fans? He's like, yeah, they're Steeler fans.
Not just rooting for the Steelers that day, Steelers fans. Not
Steeler
just for the
fans.
Super Bowl, true Steelers fans. Steelers were 6-1 in the Super Bowl before this game. Just I want to remind everybody, right? Steelers were 6-1 in
the only
Super Bowls.
loss was Neil
Dallas.
O'Donnell, Larry
Neil
Brown
O'Donnell. Yep.
in Arizona, Super Bowl 30 or whatever it was. Okay. So I go, well, shit, honey. I go, Green Bay's going to win that game, and they're going to be all pissed, and we're going to be like synonymous with the loss, and we're never going to get invited back. I go, you probably should just cancel. And she's like, no, we can't cancel. We can't cancel. And I go, she's like, you can't just pretend that you don't have money on Green Bay. And I go, well, I won't announce.
$50 maybe you could.
I go, I won't announce it, but I'm going to be sitting there rooting against them in their house I go, they're going to hate us. And she's like, well, could you just root quietly? So because I'm a good mate, I'm a good husband, I said, okay, let's do it. I go, what do I care? I know I was so confident that I was going to win that I knew I wasn't going to sit there and be the one looking like an idiot. I wasn't going to be sitting there losing $500 as these people were sitting there clapping. I knew Green Bay was going to win. Green Bay was way better, way better. If you remember this year, Green Bay had like 22 guys on season-ending IR, and they still were rampaging because they were so freaking loaded. Thank you, the late Ted Thompson. Okay. So I get to the house. The door opens. Oh, my God. They were not Steeler fans. They were on the team. They were Pittsburgh Steeler people. Every person in the house, the kids, grandma, grandpa. By the way, this family's parents were divorced. The only time they ever get along is around the Steelers. So now you have the divorced grandma and the divorced grandpa, and they normally fight like cats and dogs, but they get along great because they both fucking love the Steelers. I've got these kids who are like 8 and 9 who are like, we always win the Super Bowl, right, Dad? Right, Dad? And he's like, yep, we've only lost that one. We win Super Bowls. We win Super Bowls. And I'm like, look, I'm rolling my eyes. I'm like, not today. Not today. You're not going to win today. I'm like sitting there. And sure enough, Green Bay kicks their ass. And we're sitting there, and it was like a freaking morgue. Like, I don't even think I was not rooting out loud. I did not tell them I had money on Green Bay. I kept it to myself. I kept my enthusiasm at a total, not up, not level. Down,
no, you were
total
level. You
neutral,
level.
Totally neutral. As I'm sitting there with a Cheshire cat grin, knowing I'm cashing. All right, they have terrible towels. They're all waving the terrible towels. We sat on a couch that had a Steeler blanket over it. Everybody had a jersey on. They lose the game. We're walking out of the house. And I go, oh, that was fun. And my wife goes, yeah, that was fun. I looked at her. I go, I was joking. I go, that was fucking a nightmare. I go, are you kidding me? We're never going to be invited back here. Oh, no, stop it. We're going to be invited back. No, honey, we are never going to be invited back. We are never going to step foot inside these people's homes ever again. We are never going to be invited back. We are synonymous with this loss. We will never see those people again. Okay. That was whatever year that was. What year was it?
2011. I think
2011.
2010 season.
2010 season.
Yeah.
We're coming up on 13 years. We've never seen them again.
Does Kevin?
We've never been invited back.
Does Kevin know that he had this best friend potential that he's just like eliminated from his life?
Well, it was funny because like 5 years ago, these people's names came up, and I'm like, I told you. I told you when we walked out. Remember I said to you, we're never going to be invited back? She's like, I know, but I thought that it wasn't that big of a deal and that they would get over it and that they would invite it. No, honey, you don't get it.
No,
the Steelers don't lose Super Bowls. We are synonymous with losing that Super Bowl. We've probably been blamed for losing that Super Bowl.
Without question.
And we're never going to be invited back. And she's like, you were totally right. I had no idea. She's like, how did you know? I'm like, I just know. Once I saw the terrible towels, once I saw the family that wasn't united, that was united on Super Bowl Sunday, and then the Green Bay rolled in and just ruined their day. I mean, it was literally like these people, like they when we got there, they couldn't be nicer to us because we don't know them that well, and we're in their home. By the end of the day, by the end of that game, I don't even think they were even looking. They were just like,
no, there's no goodbyes. And if
they were swearing. They were pissed.
Yeah.
They were just like looking at their feet. Like, all right, we're going to take off. All right, yeah, it's like, all right, get out of here.
Yeah, the only good part about being at a house for a
It's
Super
awesome.
Bowl where the host has a rooting interest is that you don't even have to question the Irish goodbye. You can leave, and it is irrelevant to that family.
Yeah,
that you leaving has zero impact on their day. Their day is
None.
fucked, and it has nothing to do with you, and you can just leave. That's the only good news.
Yeah, I mean, picture this. You got an 8-year-old crying, I thought we didn't lose Super Bowls. You had grandma and grandpa who were getting along, now taking their jerseys off. They're pissed. They're all pissed. Everybody's upset. The dad's like sweating left and right profusely because he's not used to losing Super Bowls. He doesn't know how to react. And my wife's like, that was great. I'm like, no, that was not great. That was not great. That was a nightmare. We're never getting invited back. There you go.
That's
all right. That is a beaut. That is a beaut. What can I say? I knew it too. I'm like, she's like, for winning 500, you don't seem that excited. I'm like, well, I'm trying to keep it all in bottled up because otherwise I was going to upset your friends. Now it's like, yeah, you're right. I'm like,
done. Never to be heard
unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. All right, that is going to do it for us. We are an hour and 14 minutes in. Thanks to everybody. Once again, hit like and subscribe. Sammy, tell people if they haven't already subscribed to you. Tell them where they can find you and Siciliano's pod and how they can sub.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Larry. At Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam. Catch us there. I threw it in the comments as well. At Thinking Out Loud, Siciliano and Sam is the name of the YouTube page. Andrew Siciliano and Sam Betesh hosting a podcast, Thinking Out Loud. You can find us at Spotify, find us in Apple Pods as well, and, of course, on the YouTube page that you're watching along with Krueger Show right now. So thank you. Like and subscribe there. We appreciate it. Thank you, Larry.
All righty. That's going to do it for us. Thanks to Sammy. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krueger Show. Thanks to Clawdaddy Arcades. They're a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades to find a location near you. They got a brand new location in Capitola Mall. They also have a brand new location in Visalia Mall. Thanks to Learn Key Upskill Academy for sponsoring this live stream as well. The link's in the description. Thanks to Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles as well. On the great Anthony Catania, and of course, thanks to Pig and a Pickle. Thanks to Sammy. Thanks to all of you. Have a great rest of your Monday, and we'll talk to you next Monday for another edition of Larry Krueger and Sam Betesh. Hope you guys had a great stream. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time, we appreciate every single one of you. As I'm vamping because I'm looking for the button to hit to get us out of here, and oh, there it is. Wrong button.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get it.